I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
Aloha, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with the Den of Geek Network, where we discuss the entertainment of the unexplained. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Sagers, a journalist, author, researcher of all things weird, and I can currently be seen on Travel Channel and Discovery Plus's Paranormal Caught on Camera, now airing its 5th season on Thursday nights, I think. That sounds about right. Anyhow, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about another show with some very awesome people and some folks that I'm happy to say I've been able to work alongside on their show, and I just really enjoy what they do. And you'll be able to see more of what they do because this Saturday, April 9th, they are returning for more hellish hauntings because Portals to Hell returns for season 3 with 13 episodes. It airs at 10 p.m. on Travel Channel, and it debuts the same day on Discovery Plus. And this season, the intrepid paranormal investigators resume their chilling journey to haunted locations across the United States, confronting the dark side of the supernatural as they seek concrete evidence that a spirit world exists. And in each episode, they dive headfirst into a site where they examine unusual incidents of unexplained activity while utilizing specialized technology and a network of psychics, experts, and more in search for their answers. And for their premiere, they are heading to Hill View Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and that is a shuttered nursing home where former patients are rumored to live on in death. And not only that, they might cross paths with the Creeper, a malevolent shadow creature bent on scaring the living hell out of its victims. Scary. I like it. So without further ado, let me bring in my friends, Katrina Weidman. Hello.
Hey.
And Mr. Jack Osbourne. Hey, Jack. Thank you guys for joining me for this and for that very natural intro, which not at all included some publicity materials, but it was good. It was a good setup. And Jack, even though your room itself is a little dark, you are bringing the light. You're bringing the brightness with that sweatshirt.
I'm in my converted garage, office, gym, so it's sorry, I couldn't. Maybe I can find a little light around here. Maybe just shine my iPhone light at me.
Well, I know it was a little behind the scenes chatter, but I want to mention what Katrina said because you guys aren't all just spooky and poking around in the dark. You have other hobbies and watch other TV shows. Katrina, what's your current favorite show that you referenced with Jack's?
Well, there's a couple now, I got to tell you. So the one I referenced before we went live was Only Murders in the Building. It's incredible. And I just saw Steve Martin and Martin Short live on their tour. And they are like, I mean, they're comedy geniuses. You know, they're so good at their craft. Barry, HBO Max is another one. Amazing.
Is that coming back?
It is.
Yeah,
April.
it is.
We're like days away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just finished watching The Outlaws, which is a British show. Okay. And it's incredible. Okay. Top 3.
Jack, I mean, just for, what's your viewing habits right now, Jack?
Oh, man. I just started watching Severance.
Oh, okay.
So cool. Have you seen that, Katrina?
No. What is that about?
Apple Plus, whatever, Apple streaming service. It's pretty good. It's really entertaining. Kind of weird, sci-fi, dystopian kind of vibe. What else? I watch a lot of 90 Day Fiance. It's mine and my fiance's guilty pleasure. A lot of like Alone, Naked and Afraid.
Yeah.
Ooh, that one's good.
Yeah. I will dip into I just watched the Travis Walton
right.
shock doc on Discovery Plus. Watched that yesterday. You know, I do. I'll see what the kids in class are.
Yeah.
School
Well,
projects are.
I would say I would recommend, not just because this is a paranormal show, but also it's actually just a good sitcom. Ghosts, both the American version and the British version, different enough, and both are really enjoyable. And so, and speaking of fiance, by the way, Jack, congratulations on your fiance and you are welcoming a baby this summer, right?
Yep.
So
another baby inbound.
All right, congrats. Well, let's talk some ghosts. Portals to Hell. When did you film this batch of episodes? When did you get kind of back out on the road? Katrina, you want to take that?
Yeah, September, and then we wrapped in January. So, we had a couple breaks for holidays and Halloween, of course, being one of them. But yeah, I mean, we went, 13 new locations. Not new, as not all of them are new as in haven't been investigated, but we do have a lot that have either never been investigated, or a lot that were actually never done on television before. So we were pretty excited to break ground there.
Yeah, the back half of season 2 aired last spring, if I recall. But I don't know how you filmed, what order you guys had filmed all these. Was this your first kind of time back in production since pandemic lockdown, or had you filmed part of season 2 when during the?
We shut down from, what was it? February, middle of February of 2020 until we were back up in August, right?
Yeah, I think we finally got, for production. And then we were finally back on the road in October 2020. And Jack and I lived in RVs, so we did like cross country traveling in them and stayed in those, and just kind of anything to, get back out there, really.
How did you, as you were heading into season 3, obviously you've got a lot of episodes under your belt now with this show, and each of you have done other things with the paranormal prior to this. When you're approaching this season, were there any kind of changes or things that you wanted to expand on? Basically, what was the approach to season 3 compared to the previous episodes? Jack, why don't you start on that one?
It's funny. I always find like season 3 of any show I've done is really where you get in the rhythm of your rhythm, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like season 1, you're kind of like forging your way. You're like, what is this? We don't really know. We haven't seen an edit. We don't know what works. We don't know what doesn't. Season 2, you're like, okay, we got a good template from season 1. Let's just kind of copy cut. Let's keep that rolling. And then season 3, you're like, we know how to do this. We know what we got to do. We know, the location. We know what locations work, what locations don't. Basically, just from our production team is so awesome with doing their research and finding the diamonds in the rough, because there's a lot of rough out there. And yeah, it's great. I mean, we're just a well-oiled machine, and not to kind of not to make it feel like we're making sausage here, but it's there is, in order to kind of not get burnt out, kind of still feel like you've got a lot of room in the tank to finish out 10 plus episodes. You have to kind of you got to figure out a system, because you do get burnt out.
Katrina, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Jack's answer was great. I'll just echo him that, we had such an enthusiastic team this year in finding locations and digging up history. And I think one of my favorite moments was we were able to find, really, because we had such a passionate team, we were able to find historical documents that a location didn't even know existed. And so it's cool to be a part of something like that to help aid in someone's research,
And it was it was like a very historical location, like one that has like, it's not just like a little house on a hill. It was like a big deal. And they were like,
okay,
that our guys found this information.
Okay. Yeah, and I won't ask you to reveal that now, but I will say that After Hill View Manor, you guys are heading to Eloise Psychiatric Hospital, Taylor Trask Museums, the Savannah Theater, Fort Mifflin, Missouri State Penn, Malco Theater in Arkansas, and Kreitzer Mansion in Staten Island. And all those are great. I've been to many of those, and those are all great locations. Really excited to see what, literally, in this case, what you dig up as far as some of those locations go. And Jack, you sort of mentioned this, and this is something that's been on my mind. I think we're all fortunate to go to these incredible places, and it's a cool job, but it is still a job, right? You show up, you do the work, you've got long hours, and it can be tiring. For me personally, sometimes you have to remind yourself, like, this is really awesome and really fortunate to go to this Comic-Con, go to that haunted location, and refresh yourself a little bit. What do you do to maintain that enthusiasm so that way it doesn't become here we go, another haunted location, we're gonna do the beat by beat kind of routine? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. It is very hard to not get jaded, and that's just the truth of it. And we could take the most seasoned TV ghost hunters or the most enthusiastic kids right out of college who want to get into the field, and after 20 episodes, you're gonna have the same oh, here we go again. The way I like to kind of keep enthusiastic about it is it's the breaks. It's like we work, we give it all, and we structure it to where we have breaks, and we come home, we unwind, we decompress, and then it's like, cool, we're back out there, and we're doing it.
Yeah.
And also it's the team in the field, and all our DP, our camera ops, sound guys, producers, everyone helps carry the tone of the work environment. And if it's just like any other kind of work team, if there's a breakdown, everyone feels the effect.
Yeah. And Katrina, first off, I saw you laughing at me at the total mess with my
was at your straw. I know.
I tried to do it all smooth, but it's moving around. It's all right. I admit it. I'll own it. But Jack mentioned kids coming out of college and doing this. I mean, literally, this applies to you. You've been in this business for a long time from college on.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you maintain that enthusiasm? And I think overall, I have to compliment Katrina. Out of a lot of people in the field, really, you maintain a nice work-life balance and are such a normal person. But how do you kind of maintain that? Somewhat normal.
Yeah,
acceptably normal. But you are the person I think of whenever I see something Golden Girls related. But
yes. I have a whole shrine to them now. And my dad came over Sunday, and I was showing him, and he's like, the shrine. And I was like, yeah.
What's the prized possession on the Golden Girl shrine? I
have 2 books signed from her from when I met her in person. And so I'd have to say those are probably mine, because I had a chance to meet her and talk to her, and I made her laugh. And that was like, I cried the whole time. So
from Betty?
Oh, yeah. Totally bawled like a baby.
They're gonna be doing an estate sale at some point.
Oh yeah.
Jack, you tell me. You let me know when you hear something.
The families always do it. They always end up auctioning off items and things like that. Yeah. So you better get, find that online auction and maybe get like a pair of shoes or an old hanky.
So I'm going to go broke, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to become not acceptably normal, because I'm going to be covered in like all of Betty White's like objects and clothing. And that's all I'll ever wear until I die. So
that does tend to be the thing. I don't think it's just paranormal. I don't think it's just entertainment. But when you become known for one thing, for one pursuit, whether if you primarily are known for your work in the paranormal, people tend to have that other obsession, which is totally unrelated to it. So you've gone down the Golden Girls rabbit hole. That is your obsession, even though people would be like, oh, I bet her house is just all goth and all spooky paranormally stuff, and instead it's a shrine to Betty White.
Pretty
That's
much.
That's the exact reason why I chose to wear this tie-dye hoodie today. I'm trying to shrug off the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Right. The arms folded.
Yeah.
No, we
They
don't
hear a
actually.
shot.
I don't
Black
think we don't actually do that in real life.
No, no, and actually, I don't think you guys are always wearing black either on camera. In fact, I think the first time I met you, Jack, it was so cold in Philadelphia that you were just bundled up like it was giant marshmallow kind of coat because it was so cold. But yeah, and yes, so the question is like for you, Katrina, how do you kind of, is it just collecting Golden Girl stuff, or how do you kind of maintain the enthusiasm when you do go into a location?
So I like changing up approaches, so my approach has changed, and how I've worked has changed over, the 15, 16 years I've been doing it professionally. So I started off working with clients, and then it
Yeah.
went to experimenting with living in a location for a couple days. And then it went to, well, what about the biggest, baddest, most haunted places on earth? Let's go to them and see what's different.
Yeah.
So I think every time you change it up, it's an opportunity to learn. And I'm super into learning. So so it's just, I think it's just keeping your mind sharp. And we still don't know what the paranormal is.
Yeah.
We don't know, we don't have those answers. So I think anytime you have an opportunity to learn something new, it's helpful for you. And I'll echo what Jack said too. It really, really is dependent on the team. And we've really had such a stellar team. And it was just, everyone was so enthusiastic about their job. And, I think, Jack, I don't want to speak for you, but I know for me, it took off pressure for me. And so I felt like I could just enjoy doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, let me say for anyone that's in the chats, we've got some questions coming in. I'll get to those momentarily, but line up with that. You can get them out there. And thank you, Spooky Unicorn, who is in the chat, for helping out with some of the comment moderation and everything. So we have Newcastle, Hillview Manor in Newcastle, which is only like 45 minutes away from Philly, Katrina. So,
Pittsburgh.
Right? Is it in Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Oh, it's farther away. What am I thinking? Okay, so I was going to ask if it was nice kind of doing one in your local area. I guess it's farther away. But this location, was it the first location that you filmed for the season, or kind of why did you decide to open season 3 with Hillview Manor? Jack, you want to take that?
Because it was the fucking craziest place we'd been to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Tell me about that.
That place was bonkers. Every time you go, I just, excuse me if I'm kind of a bit of a downer with it, but every time I go investigate somewhere and there's like, oh, there's a ghost named Charlie, or there's the creeper, or the crawler, or the shadow, and you're just like, how many times can we hear that? But that they weren't lying. That place creeped me out. There was we kind of joke that this season, like, we're the knock and response investigators, because the amount of like knock and responses that we would get, and especially at Hillview, it was like the building was alive and just bangs, pops, and like at one point it sounded like someone rolled a bowling ball down the roof. It was like it was intense. It was really intense, and the pressure inside this one wing was nothing I've ever experienced as far as consistency of the intensity.
It's an episode. It's a really strong episode. It's an episode that feels like a season finale, honestly, and it's definitely a strong one to come out with. Katrina, talk a little bit about this creeper that Jack mentioned, but also is prominent enough that they talk about it in the promotional materials for not only the episode but for the entire season.
Yeah. So, well, what do you want to know? Like how they view the creeper, or our experience with the creeper?
Well, yeah. What is sort of the setup of this thing when you're going in? Because again, sort of like Jack said, like you go to a lot of locations where there's these signature haunts that are kind of repeated in lore and whatnot. What was it about this thing that makes it unique and different? Not even your experiences, but just according to the stories of this thing.
You know what's funny about that? About having it be unique and different? I think it's actually, So kind of like what you were saying, right? There's like every theater has the woman in white.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, and then the creeper has been popping up in talks in the paranormal field for a while, at least over a decade, probably longer.
Yeah.
And so there's multiple places that have them. And so what I find the most fascinating then is that there's all these places that claim to have the same thing. And you have to remember, a lot of these paranormal investigators didn't know of that before they started labeling. Right,
Mhm.
because some of these locations are really off the beaten path. Some of the people weren't really plugged into the paranormal until they started going to that location and had that experience, you know. But I think what was unique and different specifically about Hillview is that when we were up in the wing where they claimed the creeper kind of lives, right?
Right.
We were having all of these knocks and bangs, and I mean very jarring, significant, in your face knocks and bangs. Like it felt at points like the building was falling down almost, you know. And they seem to happen when we were asking for things. And I think the skeptical side is like, it's an old building, and like, yes, of course. But one of the things that Jack and I always do, and you don't see it on camera because quite frankly it's boring, but we'll just sit.
Mhm.
We'll go into a new space, you sit and you listen. You don't talk, you don't do anything. And
Yeah.
it's because you're trying to suss out what's normal for the building. And so one of the things Jack did after we wrapped that night investigation, he left a voice activated recorder just to see if the knocks and bangs were continuing, and nothing got picked up.
Hmm.
You know, it was just, you could hear the trucks coming by because it is, I mean, it's not like right on a road as far as like building to road, but it is, I mean, there's a road right there. But I think that was the only thing that we picked up. And then when we asked the resident ghost hunters, hey, this is what we had happen to us, what's your guys' take on that? They were like, we have looked for explanations for that stuff all the time. What we think you guys experienced was the creeper, because that's what happens to us.
Yeah.
And the rolling on the ceiling
Yeah,
was
that
like,
was weird.
what on earth would do that? I mean, I went to a different part of the building to see, okay, can someone get on the roof? And I could see actually on the roof, went up a floor higher, and I looked down. There was nothing on the roof. It literally, it sounded like I said, a bowling ball being rolled down like a bowling lane. It was just, and it went the full distance of the roof we were on. And
Yeah.
I have no idea what could have made that noise.
Well, and Jack, I think that look, these old asylums and prisons and hospitals and whatnot, they have these long hallways. They're creepy, and it's a lot of liminal spaces, all of that. But this is obviously not your first rodeo going through those types of locations. So just to reiterate, you're saying that this place in particular, compared to a lot of other spooky places, spooky hospitals and whatnot, had a different vibe to it.
Yes, and it was the level of what appeared to be intelligent, responsive activity. It didn't just feel like it did not feel residual. It was like we would knock, they would knock back, and then it was just, but it was all over. It was like behind us, in front of us. I mean, to the point where we had producers, and we had a producer like scream at one point because it was like right behind her.
Mhm.
And it was really, really intense.
I've known Katrina. I've known you longer than I've known Jack, and what is the kind of picking up this point that you mentioned before? Do you think the paranormal is getting weirder? Do you think we're tuning into more things? We're open to more things collectively, or are we as these humans, these flesh bags, almost manifesting more stuff? We're creating it. I don't know that there's a wrong answer, but
Yeah.
what do you think? Is it getting weirder?
I think it's all of the above, right? Just like,
Yeah.
an answer for like, if I have a client that comes to me that's like, my house is haunted, or say I have like 100 people that come to me and their house is haunted. 80 of them I could probably explain away. There's probably a natural explanation. And then there's 20 that mental health issues, neurological issues, like, you know what I mean? So I think it's the same thing for like the evolution of the activity at this point. I think people are more aware of it, and because they're more observant of it, they're going to report it more. you know, and on both sides of that coin, meaning that somebody who is truly having experiences probably feels more comfortable to come forward.
Yeah.
And also people that are misidentifying normal things are going to come forward and say, I
Yeah.
had this experience. So I think we're seeing both. And then there's also, there is talk about this in the field that it's kind of like the Ghostbuster theory of, things aren't the best in the world right now. So does that have anything to do with it? I I don't know that I don't have the answer. I feel like I never had the answer
No.
Well,
because
no.
because if I did, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the paranormal.
Nobody's come back with the handbook for the recently deceased, right?
Not
And
yet.
the
Not
the
that we
rule
know of.
book. You
Some
know,
people
Jack.
tried to write it, but it didn't work out.
Yeah. Jack, what's your take on it? Because I think so with your philosophy, but also, the Osbournes Want to Believe and Fright Club, and I think even sort of what we do over on the Paranormal Caught on Camera side, something we're doing is exposing people to more a diversity of ideas and cultures and different phenomena out there. And frankly, it's no longer, or hopefully it's moving away from strictly the ghost of white people and Europeans, that kind of thing. Do you think that plays into perhaps the phenomena getting more diverse as well, that we're just paying attention to more things out there in the world?
I think there is a bit of a there's definitely an eye-opening to experiences that people aren't just chalking up to being a figment of their imagination. People are, when you look at the popularity of people getting more into, certain psychedelics, which, they're having profound spiritual experiences while experimenting with them. You're seeing people, well, everyone's got a camera in their pocket now.
Right.
So the ability to capture stuff on camera is so much easier than it was 20 years ago. I think people are more, in a weird way, open-minded, but also closed-minded. It's a weird, I don't think we're all the way there yet with the masses. A lot of people want to, I think, continuously put it in a box of, oh, it's this, it's that, and here's why it's not a ghost. But my whole thing is, all right, you're telling me what it's not. Tell me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're saying it's not a ghost, then what is that? Or you're saying the experience that I had wasn't real, then explain to me the experience I had.
Yeah. It is fascinating. I think within the paranormal community, even it's you're pursuing the unknown and the unexplained, and yet you do encounter people that try to apply rules and boundaries to these things that they don't understand. And I find it challenging when you go into a location and they're like, no, the ghost of Chuck doesn't like it when you do this. It's like, I don't know. Do we know that for sure? Like, it's Katrina, speak to that a little bit, because I feel like we've talked a little bit about this in the past.
Yeah. And it's challenging as an investigator. And I think one of the things that we just have to come to terms with is that there's different types of investigators, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the Warrens were religious investigators. They were Catholics. So everything they experienced, all of their thoughts, all of their cases went through that filter.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just a very specific way of investigating. So, and then there's investigators who are very, very skeptical and they don't believe in anything supernatural. So we have to keep in mind that everything they experience is going to go through that filter. And as far as our belief systems, like, for example, when I have somebody that's like, I saw something and it's a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's dig into their cultural and religious background, because even if you don't believe the supernatural, that's also still part of your cultural background. For some reason, whatever experiences you had in your life led you to believe that. So my best advice, and what I try to remind people of, is you have to drop all of it. It's important for us as investigators to know, because it helps us understand maybe how somebody's describing their experience. And it is really interesting when you see a pattern in activity that seems to match a cultural belief.
Yeah.
It is really fascinating. But it becomes this thing of, we just have to remind ourselves that these are filters and that's all they are. So at the end of the day, we have to get down to, what have people been experiencing? And is there anything that we know of now that can explain that? And if not, does that go in the unexplainable category, or is that something truly supernatural?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think, and with our investigations we've done, with me and you, Katrina, I think maybe I would say there was 2 places where they could have been some really evil, dare I say, demonic entity. And it's just because our filter isn't always demon. And so many people in the field are obsessed with the D word. And it's just, they want demon, because it's big, it's bright, our filter isn't demon.
No, oh, sorry, Aaron.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I think when we do talk about it, it's because we're bringing up, a lot of the conversations don't make it to the final show, because we're investigating for 4 days and people are just seeing, 44 minutes of what we do. And so Jack and I have a lot of these big conversations of, well, hey, look, if there is any merit to what the Catholic Church says, does it follow these patterns? And hey, what if it's not this? What if it's time travel? Like, Jack and I have had all those weird conversations on investigations. So because I have seen that pop up sometimes online, like, well, you guys talked about a demon, and we're like, but we're kind of talking about it. And, if A and B were true, could that mean that it's this,
you guys know this, but your show is called Portals to Hell. And I think people might make certain leaps, assuming that it's all going to be demons, that they're,
I'm going to give you some inside locker room talk. Do you want to know why it's called Portals to Hell originally? It was.
Tell me why originally.
Okay, so originally it was, we were going to go investigate caves and like underground, like caverns, and like, because every town, country has like, the old hellhole or the old portal, and so it was going to be kind of like a bit of a caving ghost hunting show originally, and it kind of just evolved past it. But we liked the title, so we're like, hey, it's a good title. Let's roll with it.
It is a good title, and although, man, I would totally watch a spelunking, cave diving, paranormal show.
Have you ever gone down any of those like old abandoned mine YouTube channel? Like,
oh yeah,
there's some weird stuff that happens in some of those old mines.
And my brain, by being both a sci-fi comic book nerd and also a paranormal nerd, I entirely am willing to believe that there's probably the creatures from The Descent in these things. So I think there's got to be subterranean.
My only gripe with that movie is that they brought ice axes with them when they were going caving. There's never a need for an ice axe while caving.
Well, maybe their gripe about your show is that it's called Portals to Hell. We do have a question I want to bring up, and the thrust of this question I like is, it's got to be hard to find your spin on a place that has been on other TV shows, and these locations. I love them, even though they are famous and even though they are talked about a lot, and I think they're worthy of investigating multiple times because you can uncover other things. But from your approach, both behind the camera and on camera, what is your thought process with that? What is the mission as far as how are you finding your own spin on a place that people already think they know? Katrina, why don't you take that one?
Well, I as far as the investigator side, not the television side, but from the investigator, it's kind of like what you said, a place is never the same each time you go. In my experience, there's a lot of fluctuation there. And especially because we can't quantify what the activity is. it's kind of silly to just go once and be like, okay, done, figured out. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to do that. So I always think it's important to go back and, a lot of these places after they start having experiences that are new to them, So one of the places we went to in season 1, Trans-Allegheny, when we went, they had certain experiences. And then when we went back, they were like, oh, by the way, this is kind of new and we don't know what it is, so there's that element to look into. And then there's the other part of like, again, you're only seeing 44 minutes of a show. So there's a lot of different elements that you can explore that maybe haven't been on other shows before.
Yeah. And our team does our research, we'll watch, well, it's funny. Travel Channel has a grid. They have a full-on spreadsheet about what shows went to what location where and what the main investigative thread was. And a lot of these locations have numerous hauntings. It's not just one thing that people are kind of experiencing. So if there's a location, like Hillview, oh God, who was it? It wasn't Ghost Adventures. It was
Destination Fear.
Destination Fear. Yeah, they went 18 months before us, and we watched the episode. We knew what their experiences were, and we knew what kind of storyline that they were kind of pursuing. And we just go, all right, well, there's a dozen other storylines we can pursue with evidence to back up, historical documents about, such and such. We can speak to other witnesses, and so there is no one way to skin the cat.
Yeah. We have a paranormal celebrity in the chat, and I would like to bring up a question that he's asking. It's from John E.L. Tenney. John Tenney wants to know, how often, if ever, do you bring up paranormal phenomena with friends, family, people at coffee houses, etc., who may or may not want to hear about it? How often is it coming up with friends and family?
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
I never bring it up. I'm trying to talk to them about the Golden Girls and like convert them to being a fan. But for me, I just had it happen where people were, they were very curious about it. So they just started asking. But it does kind of feel like you're at work all the time when that happens.
But you don't force it on people that don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I usually lie about what I do, just because I don't always feel like talking about it.
What's your cover job? Like if you're in a Uber or airplane or whatever, and you just don't want to go into it, what's your cover job?
Yeah. So I used to be a volunteer crisis counselor. So I did that for 10 years and I've taken a break these last couple of years, but I'll usually just say that I, counselor, and nobody wants to hear about that because it's so, and like, you can't talk about it. That's the other thing. Like, I can't talk about any of the people I counseled. So it just sort of like people drop it. And then you just, you talk about other things in life.
As a journalist, I'm the worst person to sit next to, because if you said that, or if you said, plumber or whatever, I would follow up with questions and want to know all about that job too. But Jack, what's your cover career?
I just tell people I produce TV, whatever, and then they'll ask what, and I'm like, a lot of non-scripted stuff, and that I drag it out to where if they clear that I'm not really willing to kind of give it up, and if they're like, well, what kind of stuff? Oh, a lot of stuff for Travel Channel, A&E, things like that. Mm-hmm. Like anything I would have seen, I'd be like, well, you don't watch Travel or A&E, probably wouldn't see it. And they're like, oh, okay, that's usually where they drop it. But the paranormal stuff, it's funny because I often have my most enjoyable, memorable conversations with people who are, I guess, traditionally non-believers in it, because I can always somehow manage to find a middle ground to where it's like, well, we don't know what it is. I'm not, I choose to kind of just label it under this umbrella of it's paranormal, and it could be in some cases the consciousness of someone who was once alive, or it could be some energy anomaly that we just don't know how to detect that's causing us to hallucinate. Mm-hmm. And there's always a weird. You can always find a middle ground if you know. I like to think if I know what I'm talking about, I can even it out.
I think in my experience, it's not just the talking about it with friends, family, or whatnot, but I do find, regardless of my own desire to talk about it, if you're just sitting in a coffee house or a bar or whatever, and you're surrounded by a group of people, I think you got, maybe if you're there for an hour, at some point, someone's going to bring up a ghost or an alien or a UFO or something. I think that it does come up in conversation, even if you're not the one bringing it up. Just give it enough time at any location. I mean, that's been my experience. People love to bring up the local ghost stories and lore. Actually, with that said, for you guys, where you grew up, what were it doesn't have to be a ghost story, but what is like a local urban legend or very kind of hyper local lore from your upbringing? Anything that you can think of? The house at the end of the street, or the creepy guy with the ice cream truck, or whatever.
That was my house.
Yeah.
No, for us, so it was interesting. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and she was a researcher journalist actually about the paranormal.
Mhm.
And she wrote a bunch of books called Ghosts in the Valley, More Ghosts in the Valley. And it's all about the area I grew up in. So when you were growing up in the area, you knew all about those books and that woman and what she did. And she really broke ground, because I mean, this was, I'm trying to think what she did her research. Definitely the 70s. I don't know if she started in the 60s, but she did it for decades.
Yeah.
And this was like a time when a lot of people weren't doing that. You know, it was like very weird if you did that kind of stuff. So yeah, we grew up with that, and you know, it's pretty cool.
Cool. Anything on your end, Jack?
Trying to think. You know, I actually recently I did another series for Discovery Plus UK, and where I've gone and like investigated like where I grew up in England.
Okay.
And went to some pretty interesting places. You know, right down the street from my school was a place called Missenden Abbey, which was an abbey for like 500 years, until it was the referendum when they got rid of the Catholic Church in England and became Church of England. And I found out all sorts of stuff about that place, which you're like, oh wow, like we used to go here on school trips, and like this place is pretty messed up.
Okay.
And that was always like, oh, it's haunted over there. So it was kind of cool to get to go investigate it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd love to check that out if they bring it over here at some point. Hopefully they will. That show, that is. This season for Portals to Hell, we know that in the premiere episode, Hill View Manor, we have Michelle Belanger. She's showing up as a guest. Great author and medium, and someone that I absolutely love. Who are some of the other guests that will be seen pop in this season? Katrina, anyone you want to tease?
Yeah, Cindy Keza, Sarah Limos, one of my personal faves, Uncle Chip, as I like to call him,
Okay.
Chip Coffee, and Tim Shaw,
Oh, great.
Chris Fleming. I mean, we have amazing psychics, and I don't know if we're allowed to say the really special one yet. I mean, they're all very special, but
We can say it. Yeah.
I'll let you do it. I'll let you do it. 'Cause
Yeah, Lisa Williams came and did a ghost hunt with us, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It was great working with her.
Fangirled the whole time inside. I didn't want to let her know. I don't want her to think I was a dork, but I was like,
That's awesome.
The Lisa Williams.
What kind of payoffs can we tease? What are the episodes that, obviously we want people to tune in for all the episodes, but like I said, Eloise Psychiatric Hospital, Taylor Trask Museum, Savannah Theater, Fort Mifflin, Missouri State Pen, Malco Theater, Kreischer Mansion. What are, if you know, referencing the Osbournes Want to Believe, what's the location that you guys would take someone to that you're like, I'm going to make you a believer based on this episode of Portals to Hell. This is it. We're going to take you to this location. Which episode is that for you guys?
Well, we made a believer at Pamplin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our sound engineer was not a believer at all. She was like very, you know, lives in Brooklyn, very kind of like, wow, this is all just kind of, you know, whatever. And we made a believer out of her. She was like, I have no idea what I was just witnessing.
All right. Okay, which episode is that again?
Pamplin Historical Park.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Katrina, how about you?
I mean, I think that one definitely Hillview. Because it's just weird. We could never find an explanation for why that stuff was happening. You know, but Pamplin's the same way. There were things that were happening that we just kept trying to troubleshoot it, and we're like, there's got to be a reason for this. There has to be a reason, and it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes no sense how things went down. So I would probably say those are at the top.
Has there been a location where you went to previously, and by going back, you kind of walked away with even more of an awe of the place and more blown away by it? Is there a place that you guys have? I'm sure there's a couple of these places that you've been to prior.
Yeah. Sorry. So you mean like going another time and then
like this on your return visit,
that
that this was the time where you had hit pay dirt, where you had a real payoff and walked away even more impressed than you were before. Thinking like you have to have been to Fort Mifflin before, right, Katrina?
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah. No, they're good friends of mine, and I kind of feel like almost every place does that in some way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because every time you go, you have a different experience. I don't know that I've ever been to one place where an experience is the same every single time. So for me, because I do tend to lean skeptical, not that I don't believe things happen. I
think we just lost her. There was a network executive. She was giving too much away about the episodes, I guess. Jack, are there any second visits for you this season, or are these all new ones?
No, these are all new ones. I'm trying to think. Has there been any? No.
Just back.
Yes. Hey.
What happened?
I don't know. But
you were giving away too many trade secrets.
I know the ghosts were kicking me out.
Yeah. Jack, so these were all new.
Yeah, these were all new locations for me. I'm trying to think if there was anywhere this season that I'd been to. I don't think so.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know I am certainly looking forward to checking out all of these episodes. And yeah, the Portals to Hell is coming back this Saturday, April 9th at 10 p.m. on Travel Channel, and premiering the same day. Those episodes are dropping on Discovery Plus, which is just great because people can choose whatever platform they want to watch it on.
D+.
What's that? D+?
D+.
Yeah. And man, okay, well, here's one to leave you with is, well, we know it's been reported, obviously, that there's the merger between Discovery Plus and Warner Media. My question for you is, if you could pull from any HBO show and bring talent in character on an investigation, who would it be? Who are you bringing in character, the fictional version, on an investigation?
Are we thinking the same person, Jack? I don't know. Are we?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, you could say it real fast at the same time, but who is it, Katrina?
I would totally bury Bill Hader.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a really weird investigation, and maybe not everybody would make it out, but I love that show.
I'm thinking Larry David. I'm thinking Larry David. Jack, are you going?
You guys are keeping it all pretty in reality. I would go like full Game of Thrones character, maybe like Arya Stark. Start ripping faces off.
Yeah, that's right. She, if you do encounter any demons, I think she would be prepared to take it on.
Oh my God! Can we please bring the Red Witch to be our like psychic sweep with? Come on.
Well, I mean, yeah, I love it. I mean, Game of Thrones, the prequel series is on the way, so we're dipping back into that world. So I think you can bring those guys in.
Space isn't looking good for anyone these days. I happened to stumble across I was given like a screener of the Lord of the Rings, and my heart hurt.
Yeah. Well, we'll go out on a high note, which is the fact that a really great episode of Hill View Manor, Portals to Hell, is back. Congratulations to you guys for season 3. And really, just thank you so much for joining me for this. And I'll say for all those folks out there, don't forget to subscribe, download Talking Strange each week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and check out these streams. We also air this on youtube.com/Den of Geek US, and give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, wherever you are. So until next time, I'll be out there. Be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.